Welcome back, guys. So we've pretty much covered every single technology in the MERN stack. So MongoDB, Express.js, Node.js, and React. I'll link to a playlist to all the videos that I've interacted with ChatGPT to learn about these technologies. So go check that out if you haven't already. I think you'll find that really helpful. But what I realized is probably one of the most important things that we should be talking about right now is JavaScript, because it's basically the language that's used in pretty much all of these technologies. So I thought, why not create a video where I'm interacting with ChatGPT, learning about the basics of JavaScript, going through some advanced things as well. I think it'd be helpful to add to this video series that I'm doing. So if you are looking to build your programming skills, there's no doubt that you're going to be coming across JavaScript because it's probably one of the most popular languages, especially when it comes to web development. Pretty much every single browser uses JavaScript. Extremely useful language if you want to get into web development. Of course, very frustrating at times. So let's go and learn the basics and some advanced things with JavaScript in ChatGPT. Okay, so why don't we start with something really simple, and that is, what is, JavaScript, JavaScript, and what, well, let's just start what is JavaScript first and see what it has to say. Okay, so JavaScript is a high-level, versatile programming language that enables developers to create dynamic and interactive content on websites. It's widely used in web development alongside HTML for structure and CSS for styling. So key features of JavaScript: client-side scripting. It runs directly in the browser, in the user's browser. So basically the browser that I'm on right now, enabling real-time interaction without needing to reload the page. So an example is an interactive form, so animations and drop-down menus. Cross-platform, it works across different operating systems and browsers without needing significant changes. And dynamic and flexible, it allows changes to web content such as updating text, images, or styles after the web page loads. Event-driven, it responds to user actions like clicks, hovers, and key presses, making websites interactive, and supports asynchronous operations, handles tasks like fetching data from servers without interrupting the user's experience. So that's probably around sort of APIs. Extensibility, JavaScript can work with libraries, example jQuery, and frameworks, React, which is what we went through a few videos ago, Angular and Vue, which I think I'm going to create some videos on as well, to build complex applications. So where is JavaScript used? It's used in front-end web development, so used for creating user interfaces and enhancing user experiences. So examples: form validations, real-time updates, animations, back-end development with runtime environments like Node.js. JavaScript can handle server-side tasks, example, building APIs and handling database operations. So mobile app development is also used for frameworks like React, and game development, 2D and 3D games for web browsers. Desktop applications tools like Electron allow JavaScript to create cross-platform desktop apps. So cool, so here's an example of JavaScript. So this is how you display a message in the terminal with JavaScript. So you would write console.log hello world, and it would essentially display hello world in the browser. And then, so updating web content dynamically. So to grab something from, let's say, a HTML document, you would write document.getElementById. So you would obviously name the ID in your HTML file. And so this is an example, and then you could change whatever is in that tag. So you would change the text, and you could change the JavaScript is awesome. Okay, so say for example, it says example in there, you could change it to JavaScript as well. This is how you interact with a HTML document. So basically interacting with the DOM, okay? So JavaScript is a core technology of the web, playing a crucial role in creating engaging and functional applications, making it one of the most important programming languages to learn, definitely. So obviously I've had a bit of experience using JavaScript. I've gone through a fair amount of content on Free Code Camp. I'm almost finished my Free Code Camp certificate with JavaScript. If you haven't done that, I highly recommend going through Free Code Camp to do it. JavaScript is not like HTML or CSS. It is a lot more complex. Basically, it's completely different. It's a programming language. They say that HTML and CSS is not necessarily programming languages. I mean, there's obviously an argument around that, but if you want to do things with your website, if you want to do things with, with data, then you have to understand the basics, or you have to understand JavaScript, and there's a lot to it. Well, let's just ask ChatGPT quickly, what makes JavaScript different from HTML and CSS? I think this could be interesting, right? So, let's just get some of the basics out of the way, just so we can then move on to some more advanced things with JavaScript. So JavaScript, HTML, and CSS are the three core technologies used to build websites, but each serves a distinct purpose. Here's how JavaScript differs from HTML and CSS. So the purpose, HTML, which is hypertext markup language, it defines the structure and content of a web page. So think of it as the skeleton of the website. So an example, headings, paragraphs, images, links, and forms. If you have used HTML, you probably know what this is. If not, we'll go through a bit of an example. CSS, so cascading style sheets, it controls the visual presentation of styling of a web page. Think of it as the skin and clothes of the website. So an example, colors, fonts, layouts, and animation. So yeah, HTML is basically like the frame of a house. And CSS, you could imagine, is the paint that you decide to use, or the different, carpet that you want to put in, or the different architraves, for example, like just basically styling things for your house. And so JavaScript adds dynamic behaviors and interactivity. So it would be like, I guess, maybe the plumbing in your house, or like the electricity that you add to your house, making it more sort of interactive and more alive. That's what JavaScript is. So think of it as the brain and muscles that make the website interactive. Yeah, so button clicks, form validation, real-time updates, and animations triggered by events. So functionality, so here's a basic example of HTML. So you got a H1 tag, welcome to my website, and then you got a paragraph. This is a simple introduction. So CSS, it defines how the content looks. So example, you can grab the H1 and you can give it the color blue, and you can change the font size to 36 pixels. And with JavaScript, you can make the content interactive and respond to users' actions. So an example here is you can grab the H1 through query selector, document.query selector. So you grab this H1 tag from here, and then you can add an event listener. So when someone clicks on the H1 on the heading, it sends an alert that says you clicked the heading. So an alert will pop up on the page. That's basically how JavaScript differs from HTML, CSS. So hopefully you guys understand the basics of that. So HTML is static, CSS is static, but JavaScript is dynamic. Examples of use, display button, add styling, add interaction. So with JavaScript, you can add event listeners. You can't do any styling with, well, you can do some styling with JavaScript, but basically it doesn't style, but it can apply styles dynamically. And through JavaScript, you can add interaction. So through a button, the button can show an alert when it's clicked, like we just saw above. So, okay, let's ask it some more other questions. Like, I want to know about how JavaScript kind of runs. So, where does JavaScript run? Only on the browser. Only in the browser or server. So this could be interesting because it can run on both, right? So let's ask ChatGPT. Let's see what ChatGPT has to say. JavaScript can run on both the browser and the server. Obviously, we've gone through React, we've gone through Node.js. React is a front-end framework. Node.js is for the back-end. They both use JavaScript. So browser client-side JavaScript traditionally runs on web browsers where it's used to make websites interactive. Okay, we get that. So common uses, handling user events, updating web pages. So browsers like Chrome, Firefox, Safari have built-in JavaScript engines. So basically every single company that has built its own browser, they have incorporated JavaScript as the main technology to interact with the browser. So, I mean, you can think of the browser just like a canvas, right? Like a painting canvas. And the way that you paint with that canvas is to use HTML, CSS, and the way to get that canvas to do things is through JavaScript. So that's basically what a browser is, and there's three different ways of using technologies with the browser to make it do things, or make it look the way you want it to look, or make it interact the way you want it to interact. And that is by using JavaScript. JavaScript running on the browser interacts with the web page, HTML and CSS through document object model, so through the DOM. So let's just grab this because this gets thrown around a lot. What is, and we'll come back to this in a second. So the document object model is a programming interface for web documents. It represents the structure of a web page as a tree of objects that you can manipulate using JavaScript. Okay, think of the DOM as a bridge between a web page content, so HTML, and the code, JavaScript. So the DOM organizes the HTML document into hierarchical tree. Each element like div, p, or h1 is represented as a node in the tree. Okay, so this is how to organize the DOM, and the DOM tree looks like this based on you can see the indentations here. So node types, element node represents HTML tags, yeah, interactive. So where is the DOM? Important dynamic content. The DOM makes it possible to update web content without requiring page reload. So interactive websites enable features like form validation, live updates and animations. Accessibility allows developers to ensure content is accessible to users with the assistive technology. How to work with the DOM in JavaScript. So once you've created your HTML structure, then you can start working and manipulating that. And you can do that through JavaScript. So you can grab the heading. You know, if you've named it in the ID of the heading as title. So you would know more about what I'm talking about if you have some experience with HTML. If you don't have experience with HTML, I'm thinking about creating another video as well, just to add to this kind of playlist. But if you have some experience with HTML, then you probably know what I'm talking about here. Because you have to name things within your HTML. So let's say you've got a heading. So let's say you've got a H1 heading. When it says to get element by ID, what you're basically doing here is you are going into the H1 and you are giving it an ID, and you're saying the ID of that H1 is going to be title. Okay, and so now you can grab that ID through from the HTML file by grabbing the title name here. So that's how that would look essentially. Okay, and if you wanted to get elements by the class name, you could do it by class, which is generally how you interact with, you know, your styling your CSS document. So class would be text. Whoops, text. And so you can then grab the paragraph. So let's say this is a paragraph now. We'll get rid of this. We'll get rid of this ID. So let's just say you've got a paragraph tag. This is what this paragraph tag would look like. So that you would have the class text. Okay. And so, yeah, there's all different things that you can do once you sort of, you know, understand how to interact with the DOM, how to interact with a HTML document. That's where JavaScript becomes really handy. Okay, so I think we've got some of the basics down. Let me just go back up here because I did want to mention a couple more things. Yeah, so obviously it runs on the browser, but it also runs on the server. So there's server side, which environments like Node.js, which you've already gone through, uses. So JavaScript can also run on servers to handle back-end tasks. So Node.js is a runtime environment. Yep, so we've gone through Node.js. It runs on the V8 machine, the same engine used in Chrome, but adds additional features like system access, networking, and databases. Common use cases on the server is to build web servers and APIs. That's, you know, where you would, you know, where Node.js comes in really handy. So interacting with databases, handling user authentication. Why? So let's ask, because, you know, now I'm thinking, okay, why is it easier to use the same language on the browser? And now, obviously, this is probably self-explanatory, but let's browser and server. You know, there's probably a whole bunch of reasons, but let's find out why it's easy to use the same language on both and why technologies like Node.js has been created. So using the same language on both browser and server, like JavaScript, simplifies development and brings many advantages. Here's why it's easier and beneficial: unified skill set. So developers only need to learn one language. So this is why, you know, especially if you want to get into web development, it's probably best to just stick with JavaScript, you know, because you can run browser, client side and server side both with one language. You know, this is definitely why I'm sort of, you know, trying to go deep on JavaScript, because I'm building my web development skills. And so for anyone that's sort of new to programming, this is kind of where you should be looking, you know, where you should be focusing, is to build your skills on this particular language, because, you know, this is basically all you need essentially at the beginning of your web development, career. So it's a unified skill set. It eliminates the need to switch between different languages, JavaScript for the browser and PHP, Python or Ruby for the server. Now, I'm sure that a lot of people probably have different opinions on this, because, you know, people love PHP, people love Python, Ruby as well. I've heard really good things about it. You know, me right now, I'm just using JavaScript at the moment. I'm just trying to get really good at one particular language, and then I'll probably move on to others later on. Don't kill me in the comment section. Example, a developer's skill in JavaScript can work on the entire application stack without needing to master multiple languages, which I think is, you know, probably the main reasons why JavaScript is being used on the server side and on the client side and server side. See, because a language like Python, for example, is mainly a back-end language. It's mainly used on the back end to do, you know, back-end algorithms, to work with data and all that kind of stuff. Whereas JavaScript, you can use it on both back-end and front-end. Code reusability, code written for one side can often be reused on the other. An example, validation logic written in JavaScript for the browser client side can be reused on the server side to maintain consistency. Yep, so shared validation function. So this makes it easier to validate information because it's all being done in the same language, using, like, you know, the regex here as well. So, you know, this might be different in another language. And so it just makes it easier, I think, for performance to be using the same language. So use on both client and server. So easier debugging and maintenance. Developers can use the same tools for debugging techniques, which that's obviously really important, because once you get used to certain errors, then you know how to fix those errors. And so, you know, that would obviously make your life a lot easier as well. Simplified collaborations. Team can work more cohesively since everyone is familiar with the same language. Full stack developers can seamlessly transition between front-end and back-end tasks. And shared libraries and frameworks. Many JavaScript libraries and frameworks work on both the client and server side. Example libraries like moment.js for data handling and Axios for HTTP requests. So frameworks like Next.js, Express.js allow shared functionality between the front end and back end. Okay, cool. And streamlined development process. A single build and runtime environment simplifies deployment pipelines and tooling. It just makes it easier to work with one language. It's like, you know, trying to work with different writers, for example, and someone writes in English, someone writes in, you know, let's say Japanese, someone writes in Russian. I'm not saying the languages are that far apart. They're definitely not that far apart, but, you know, just to give you an idea, it just makes sense for everybody to work on the same language. And that's probably why some of these, you know, like the MERN stack, for example, all the language is pretty similar. So why don't we ask something a bit more advanced here? Now, there's something that pops up a lot with JavaScript, and that is an asynchronous programming language. So let's ask ChatGPT, what does it mean that JavaScript is an asynchronous programming language? Now, I've stuffed up the spelling, and that doesn't really matter. I'm pretty sure it'll pick it up. Okay, so JavaScript being an asynchronous programming language means it can handle multiple tasks at the same time without blocking the execution of other code. This allows JavaScript to efficiently manage operations that may take time, such as network requests or file reading, without making the application unresponsive. How asynchronous programming works. In JavaScript, instead of waiting for a task to finish blocking, the program can start the task, continue running other tasks, and handle the result of asynchronous tasks when it's ready. So, you know, I think, you know, we kind of went through a bit of this with going through the React video and obviously the Node.js. So what other programming languages are asynchronous? Oh gosh, I butchered that as well. Asynchronous programming is a paradigm that many modern programming languages support. While JavaScript is particularly well known for its asynchronous capabilities, other languages also have features or frameworks that enable asynchronous programming. Here are some programming languages that support it. So Python also does asynchronous, as we can see. What else? So C# has excellent asynchronous support with async and await keywords. So yeah, obviously, JavaScript is not the first language to have asynchronous program capabilities. Many program languages before it also have it. So Go has it as well, supports asynchronous programming. So in a very simple, so let's say in very simple terms, where is it? Please discuss why it's important that JavaScript has asynchronous abilities. So let's have a look. In very simple terms, please discuss. So JavaScript's asynchronous capabilities are important because they let it handle multiple tasks at the same time, keeping websites and applications fast and responsive. So without it, your app would freeze whenever it has to do something that takes time, like loading data or waiting for a file. So obviously that's very important for JavaScript because it is a dynamic program, makes a web page more dynamic. So having it being able to do multiple tasks at the same time would ensure that websites can do multiple things. So so why it's important? So it avoids freezing the app, handles time-consuming tasks, and it also provides better user experience. Users don't like waiting. Asynchronous abilities make websites faster and smoother by ensuring they remain interactive while tasks run in the background. So hopefully you guys, got a pretty good idea about, what it means when people say that JavaScript is a asynchronous programming language. Now let's get some history on JavaScript as well, and we'll just sort of wrap this up. What is the main problem that? So why was JavaScript created? I think this will be interesting. So JavaScript was created to make web pages interactive and dynamic. When it was first developed in 1995 by Brendan Itch at Netscape, the primary goal was to give web developers a simple way to add functionality interactive to web pages. So obviously back then browsers were a brand new technology. So, perhaps a new programming language needed to be created to keep up with this new technology. So the story behind JavaScript, the problem: in the early days of the web, websites were static. They were just text and images, and users couldn't interact with them. So for any dynamic functionality like form validation or simple animations, developers had to rely on slow and complicated server-side code. The solution, Netscape, the company behind one of the first popular web browsers, wanted a lightweight, easy to learn language that could run directly in the browser. Brendan created JavaScript in just 10 days in 1995 to solve this problem. That's amazing. So why was it created? To add interactivity and to run in the browser and be easy to learn, and that's debatable. And to complement Java. So JavaScript was initially called Mocha and later LiveScript, but Netscape renamed it to JavaScript for marketing reasons to align with the popularity of Java, another language at the time. Despite the name, the two languages are very different. Yes, I've heard that over and over again, and that seems to be what people get it seems to be what people get pretty confused on, that Java and JavaScript are the same, but no, they're completely different. So the impact of JavaScript: immediate success. JavaScript quickly became the standard for adding interactivity to web pages. Standardizations: in 1997, JavaScript was standardized as ECMA script. What does this mean? What is this acronym? What does this mean? standardized specification in JavaScript. It ensures ECMA is a standardized specification in JavaScript programming languages. What does it stand for? What does it stand for? I like to just get these acronyms sort of fleshed out so we know what we're talking about here. European Computer Manufacturers Association script. Oh, okay, right, fair enough. Standardized and accept. Yep, modern use. Over time, JavaScript evolved into a powerful language for building not just websites, but also backend servers, mobile apps, games, and more. So in summary, JavaScript was created to make websites interactive and dynamic, run directly in the browser for faster performance, and be simple and accessible for web developers. So let's now, can you please wrap up 5 of the main points in this chat? So let's get a summary, guys, of everything that we've learned today. And if you want this chat, I can probably share it with you. I don't understand why, but I just, if you're interested, maybe I could share this entire chat with you. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you're interested in. I can do that. So here are the 5 main points. JavaScript's purpose and creation was created in 1995 to make web pages interactive and dynamic. JavaScript and asynchronous programming. JavaScript's asynchronous capabilities allows it to handle multiple tasks simultaneously. Example, fetching data while keeping the page responsive, improving user experience and application performance. JavaScript versus HTML and CSS. HTML provides the structure, CSS does the style, and JavaScript adds interactivity and dynamic functionality, making them complementary technologies. And the ECMA script is the standardized specification that defines JavaScript's features and behavior, ensuring consistency across environments like browsers. Why it's easier to use JavaScript on both client side and server. Using JavaScript for both front end and back end simplifies development by allowing code reuse. So using JavaScript for both front end and back end simplifies development by allowing code reuse and a unified skill set and a streamlined workflow with tools like Node.js for the server side. These points highlight JavaScript's evolution in its role in web development and its powerful capabilities in modern programming. So that's it, guys. I think that we're going to wrap up this video here. Hopefully you gained a lot of information. It was valuable for you. It's, JavaScript is just something that if you're new to programming, you're going to have to learn at some stage, especially if you want to create websites. Like I said, I've been using it for, easily the past 5 months now. And it's an extremely deep and narrow subject. It goes very, very deep. There's a lot to it. I feel like I'm sort of just kind of scratching the surface off it now as well. I feel like maybe I'm potentially always going to be just scratching the surface off it, but using JavaScript to do things like, make a button change color, to, fetch data from another website like an API, to use JavaScript to, make sure that when you create a form that it's validated, with the right information. JavaScript can ensure that the right information has been input into the form as well. There's a lot of different things you can do with it, and I think the more that you learn about JavaScript, the more capable you are to just go out and just build your own things, and that's definitely something that I'm interested in doing. So anyway, hope you got a lot of value from this video. I'm thinking about creating more videos on different programming languages as well. So if this is something that you liked, consider subscribing to the channel. But that's it. Thanks, guys.